Good evening. Our top story tonight, Justin Jefferson will not return this weekend. Sounds like that's a bit aggressive per head coach Kevin O'Connell. Is Justin Jefferson avoiding returning to the Minnesota Vikings? Is Justin Jefferson going to have a mini holdout? Has he quietly quit on the Minnesota Vikings, waiting for a clear picture at quarterback, waiting for a contract? What is going on with Justin Jefferson? What is going on across the NFL? We have injury updates and more on Player Profiler today. Justin Jefferson has officially been out for 4 weeks. He missed 4 games, and he is officially eligible to return to the Minnesota Vikings. His 21-day practice window has been opened, so he has rejoined the Vikings. He is back at practice today, but rumors persist. Conversations continue to swirl around Justin Jefferson that maybe the reason that coach Kevin O'Connell thinks that would be a little aggressive of Justin Jefferson returning after 4 games. Maybe that's because they expect Justin Jefferson to hold out with no clear answer at quarterback, with Kirk Cousins set to be a free agent, with Justin Jefferson having no new deal. And these people are all silly. All the conversations around Justin Jefferson leaving the Minnesota Vikings ignore very blatant and obvious evidence that Justin Jefferson wants to be a Minnesota Viking, that Justin Jefferson will stay with the Minnesota Vikings. And first and foremost, that's him being at the games, even the road games. Justin Jefferson attended road games where the Minnesota Vikings helped get themselves to 4-0, by the way, without Justin Jefferson. So they continued to win while he was out. The offense and the team is obviously better with Justin Jefferson. And so they will be happy to have him return. And Justin Jefferson was happy to be there supporting his team. You don't always see that. You do not always see teams bring injured players along with them to away games. And Justin Jefferson did, because he has bought into Kevin O'Connell. He has bought into the Minnesota Vikings. And then you see Justin Jefferson. He is the happiest person on earth. He is the happiest person on the sideline for the Minnesota Vikings, celebrating Josh Dobbs. Justin Jefferson is not going anywhere. Justin Jefferson, the reason they put him on injured reserve to begin with was to protect him from himself. The Minnesota Vikings realize how valuable Justin Jefferson is. The Minnesota Vikings are also pushing for a playoff spot, shockingly enough. So maybe they sit Justin Jefferson this week. Maybe they give him a full 6 weeks to recover. Because remember, we saw Cooper Kupp come back too early from a hamstring injury, and then he ends up on injured reserve. So the Vikings don't want Justin Jefferson to aggravate, re-injure that hamstring, and so they are going to be super cautious with their all-star. There is no contract rumors. There is no worries. Justin Jefferson will be back with the Minnesota Vikings. Who his quarterback is remains to be seen. Do they bring back Kirk Cousins? Do they start Josh Dobbs? We'll find out as the season rolls on. They will be without Jaren Hall this week. He is in the concussion protocol. Doesn't practice today. Doesn't look like we're going to have Jaren Hall on Sunday. It's going to be Josh Dobbs. He's going to be backed up by Sean Mannion, who's on the practice squad, and Tanner Morgan recently signed to the practice squad as well. Tanner Morgan, former Minnesota Golden Gophers quarterback, mind you. But this is Josh Dobbs' team going forward. And him being the starting quarterback, Josh Dobbs being QB1 for the Minnesota Vikings, was amazing for TJ Hawkinson. A 41% target share, 12 targets for TJ Hawkinson in the debut of Josh Dobbs. And this comes as no surprise. Josh Dobbs led the NFL with a 32.3% target rate to the tight end position. Now he gets an even better tight end. Yes, TJ Hawkinson, better than Zach Ertz, better than Trey McBride, though Trey McBride pretty damn good. TJ Hawkinson is going to be feasting for the rest of the season with Josh Dobbs as his quarterback. And then behind him, we see a 17% target share for Jordan Addison, a 10% target share for Tristan Jackson, 2% or 2 targets for Brandon Powell, 1 for Alexander Madison. This is going to be a TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson offense when he returns. I don't know how much room there will be for Jordan Addison if he's only getting 17% of the targets without Justin Jefferson. We'll see as they actually get to know each other, get to work with each other. There is room for improvement, but it's clear TJ Hawkinson is going to be the alpha in the Minnesota Vikings passing game with Josh Dobbs under center until Justin Jefferson returns. And then I hope that Justin Jefferson is the alpha. He's got to be, right? Because it's Justin Jefferson. We'll see if Josh Dobbs figures that out. Before we get to Thursday night football and the rest of the injury report, we've got a word from the Podfather.
DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at PlayerProfiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a Lineup Genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks you want to be overweight on, then building stacks, then setting runbacks, then optimizing, and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year. Not a week. A year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry. Hey, so many ask me, what's wrong with sportsbooks? Why so many of them fail? The answer is simple. They don't innovate. They're just casino sportsbooks on a phone. That's all they've been. There are a few that are doing a good job. We partner with them. Most of them, not so much. Until Bet Openly came along. Bet Openly said, hey, we're going to innovate. We're going to do something groundbreaking. We're going to have peer-to-peer betting in all states, and you pay 1%. When you win, you pay just 1% on your winnings. You heard that right. It's 1%. With code Underworld, you qualify for just that 1% transaction fee on Bet Openly. It gives you ultimate flexibility to set your own lines and browse lines that others have set. Think about it. That's what betting should be, and now that is the reality. BetOpenly.com. The code is Underworld. Check it out.
Check it out, and make sure you check out on Sunday morning, right before kickoff, 12 o'clock Eastern, and then whatever else in the less important time zones, but 12 o'clock noon Eastern time on Sunday. We've got Start Sit on YouTube, on Facebook, across the board. Even before that, we've got Instagram Start Sits. We've got TikTok Start Sits before that. So all throughout the morning, we've got Start Sits on Player Profiler. Make sure you check in on YouTube as well. Starts at 12 o'clock, the YouTube show, and some other ones earlier on that on different platforms. But we're here to answer your Start Sit questions. Players that we won't be answering Start Sit questions on because they play on Thursday, they don't play on Sunday, are Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields is officially doubtful, and then he's listed as out during the press conference, and then they go back to doubtful. But Justin Fields, he's not going to play. Tyson Bagent going to start one more week, but looks like he's going to have his running back, Khalil Herbert, expected to return. He's officially questionable, but practiced in full all throughout the week. Looks like Khalil Herbert suffered that high ankle sprain. He is going to be back. And Cole Kmet is going to be playing as well. Cole Kmet, 2 touchdowns from Tyson Bagent last week. Off the injury report, he is good to go, 100% cleared. Obviously, he's not 100% healthy. No NFL player is at this point in the season, but Cole Kmet practices in full for 2 days in a row. That is as good as you're going to get in the NFL. He is good to go. On the other side of the field for the Carolina Panthers, Brian Burns is going to be out. He's in the concussion protocol, also has an elbow injury. DJ Chark is doubtful with an elbow injury as well. DJ Chark probably not going to be out there for Bryce Young. I'm expecting a big Hayden Hurst game this week against the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are the worst defense in the NFL against the tight end position. No defense allows more points per game to tight ends than the Chicago Bears. So I expect Hayden Hurst, who was tight end 21 last week, yes, but if he catches a touchdown, which is all the tight end position is catching a touchdown, he jumps to the tight end 13. Hayden Hurst going to have a big game this week against the Chicago Bears. Going to be the wide receiver one for Bryce Young. Speaking of the Carolina Panthers, David Tepper, the owner, has now fired his fourth coach. No, it's not Frank Reich. He is also the owner of the Charlotte FC, the Charlotte Football Club. Bought it back in 2022. And now he's fired 2 Charlotte FC coaches. And that is along with Ron Rivera, who got fired, and Matt Rule, who got fired just last year. So, and really, he kind of fired Steve Wilkes as well. Steve Wilkes, the interim head coach, said, nope, you're not good enough. You're not going to be the head coach. Moving on, Frank Reich is our guy, but Frank Reich's not going to get to pick the quarterback. David Tepper quickly becoming one of the worst owners in the NFL and in sports in general. Other injury updates across the NFL. We do have some bad news for Josh Downs. He did not practice today for the Indianapolis Colts. He suffered that knee injury on Thursday, was limited on Friday, played on Sunday, leaves the game early on Sunday, and now he is not practicing with a knee injury. Might be down for a period of time. Sticking in the AFC South, the Titans are going to be without Treylon Burks. He is in the concussion protocol, did not practice earlier today. Neither did their right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere, except he was their left tackle, so he was right tackle last year. And then he returns, and Andre Dillard is really bad, so he steps in at left tackle. But then the right tackle, Chris Hubbard, goes down, so he's back to right tackle. He's been flip-flopping all around. He was suspended earlier this year because same thing as Jameson Williams, is suspended for gambling on non-NFL games. He returns. Looks like he's going to be out this week with a shoulder injury. Treylon Burks going to be out with a concussion. Speaking of the Titans, though, Derrick Henry, according to Marlon Humphrey of the Baltimore Ravens, all-pro cornerback, the Ravens were 85% of the way there on a deal for Derrick Henry. We all know the owner vetoed a trade of Derrick Henry to the Tennessee Titans, or from the Tennessee Titans to the Baltimore Ravens. Wouldn't that have just been beautiful? Instead, we get Keaton Mitchell, who really, when you look at the stats and the snaps, Justice Hill was still the RB1, played 63% of the snaps. 18% of the snaps go to Gus Edwards. 18% go to Keaton Mitchell in a blowout. And John Harbaugh talking about how it's going to be a committee. I don't think Keaton Mitchell is going to have the breakout that we all desperately want him to have. Obviously, after roster him, obviously it's good that you picked him up off of waivers, but just don't be surprised if Justice Hill still plays more snaps, if Gus Edwards is still getting the touchdowns. Rest of the injury report, Josh Palmer is on injured reserve. He reportedly has a knee sprain. Most commonly when we hear knee sprain, that is the MCL. Obviously, there are 4 ligaments in the knee, plus the patellar tendon, which the patella is the kneecap, but that's a little bit different. So usually when NFL teams say that there is a knee sprain, usually it's the MCL. Usually it's a 2 to 4 week injury, so he goes on injured reserve. Hopefully Josh Palmer is back pretty shortly after his injured reserve stint. He returns, unless it's a different injury, but the Chargers are being vague on purpose. Eagles also got some bad news. Nakobi Dean, their linebacker that they drafted out of Georgia last year, he is headed to injured reserve. He has a Lisfranc sprain. And typically, when you have a Lisfranc injury, we saw with Travis Etienne, it means the season is over. So they're going to get the second opinion. They are still going to investigate further, but looks like Nakobi Dean could be done for the year. Speaking of the Eagles, congratulations to Jason Kelce. Who would have thought that Jason, not Travis, Jason Kelce would be in consideration for the sexiest man alive per Time magazine? He is up against Timothy Chalamet. He's up against Jamie Foxx. He's up against Lenny Kravitz. He's up against Usher. And he's up against Pedro Pascal. Jason Kelce is that 6th finalist. Congrats to Jason Kelce. I would love to see a dad bod type of guy win that award. But we will see how it shakes out. Final bad news, the Saints didn't have Kendre Miller at practice earlier today. Didn't practice with an ankle injury. We'll see if he's available on Sunday. We've got 2 more days of practice to make sure that happens. Speaking of the Saints, they've got a pretty good stretch coming up. They're going to be facing Josh Dobbs this coming weekend, and Josh Dobbs is a gamer. Josh Dobbs is a baller. I'm not against starting Josh Dobbs this week against the New Orleans Saints. It's a good defense, but man, Josh Dobbs looked good. But anyways, it's Josh Dobbs, then it's the bye, Then they play the Falcons, so that's either Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder. Probably Heineke, but maybe they bench him for Ridder again. Then it's Jared Goff. That's a tough matchup. Jared Goff is a good NFL quarterback, top 10 NFL quarterback, Jared Goff. Then it's Bryce Young, who has not been good this year. Then it's the New York Giants, and they're either going to be starting Tommy DeVito, who is starting this week for the New York Giants. They're either going to be starting him or Matt Barkley, or maybe they start Jacob Eason. But either way, Giants are in shambles. Then they face the Rams. Matthew Stafford, quality NFL quarterback. Hopefully he's back by then. Expected to be back next week, backed up by Carson Wentz, but maybe it is Carson Wentz. Either way, the Saints, that is the last difficult matchup. It is just Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford that are difficult matchups for the Saints. Then it's Baker Mayfield. Then it's again the Atlanta Falcons, so either Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder. So the New Orleans Saints at 5-4, they are looking good, heading towards a playoff shot. Obviously, they're going to get eliminated round one because the NFC South is what the NFC South is, and the Saints aren't a great team, not a particularly good team. They're an okay team. They're just going to get eliminated round one of the playoffs, but they're going to make the playoffs, it looks like. Other injury updates around the NFL. Jamar Chase was at practice today. He was doing some stuff, but he didn't officially participate in any of the actual practice. He was doing his own thing. Jamar Chase listed as did not practice with the back injury. Based on his comments, I wouldn't be surprised if he holds himself out this week just to get fully healthy. But he's walking fine. We're going to monitor Jamar Chase's status through practice throughout the rest of the week. We'll see if Jamar Chase plays on Sunday. Tune back in on Friday, and we'll have an update for you. Speaking of Bengals wide receivers, Charlie Jones, the rookie, Charlie Football out of Purdue. He is back. 21-day practice window. He is expected to return from injured reserve with a thumb injury, so he's back at practice. Bengals have 21 days to activate Charlie Jones. Texans don't have Dameon Pierce today at practice. He's got the ankle injury, not practicing today. If Dameon Pierce isn't practicing in full by Friday, then I'm not playing Dameon Pierce, because if he's full on Friday, that means he's fully healthy and there's a chance that he contributes. But if he's still limited, and we don't know what Dameon Pierce's role is going to be, he's the lead back, but Devin Singletary's the pass-catching back, and then you add in a limited tag for Dameon Pierce, and I'm not trusting him. So Dameon Pierce must be full, otherwise you cannot trust Dameon Pierce this week. Didn't practice today. Nico Collins doesn't practice today. He's got an undisclosed injury, but no practice for Nico Collins. Will Anderson's on the injury report. Didn't practice today with a hamstring injury. Lots of bad injury news for the Houston Texans. The good news is Derek Stingley, their cornerback who they drafted ahead of Sauce Gardner, has been designated to return from injured reserve. He has 21 days to be activated. The Washington Commanders were missing Jahan Dotson earlier today. Didn't practice. This is for personal reasons. He's expected back tomorrow. So Jahan Dotson expected to be back. Hopefully the breakout can continue for him. Not positive it'll happen, though, because Curtis Samuel is back at practice. He's dealing with a toe injury, missed this past week, but looks like Curtis Samuel is going to return, which helps take some of the pressure off Jahan Dotson and also take some of the targets away from Jahan Dotson. Other injury news across the NFL, other players that are back include Deebo Samuel. He is practicing in full. He had the shoulder injury, had the bye week. Now Deebo Samuel practicing in full. Not so good news for Trent Williams, the left tackle of the 49ers. He didn't practice today with the ankle injury, but he never practices on Wednesdays. Even when fully healthy, Trent Williams doesn't practice on Wednesdays. So hopefully we get good news. Hopefully Trent Williams is fine. Hopefully he practices tomorrow coming off the bye. We'll see. Speaking of the 49ers, Chase Young was almost acquired by the Baltimore Ravens, almost acquired by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams were in on the edge rusher, former second overall pick. And instead, the 49ers cough up a third-round pick, and that's when both teams backed out. But they were in it until the very end. 49ers and Chase Young will be getting their play calls from Steve Wilks, who will be on the sideline this weekend. He's making the transition from the booth to the sideline, which we just saw Matt Canada do for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was the best that the Steelers have looked on offense this week, so expect that to continue. Other good news on the injury front, Drake London trending to return. He has a groin injury, missed this past weekend. Looks like Drake London is going to be back for the Atlanta Falcons. Christian Watson was practicing today. He's got a back injury, a chest injury. He's been battered. He's been bruised throughout the season. Now he gets a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that just 2 weeks ago I would have been very, very excited for. But now Joey Porter Jr. is the starting cornerback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He wanted DeAndre Hopkins, and he looked pretty good against DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins goes for 4 receptions, 60 yards, the worst game we've seen from a wide receiver one against the Steelers this season because Joey Porter is finally starting. So that makes me worried about Christian Watson. But if Joey Porter doesn't shadow Christian Watson, then we're looking at something juicy. Because before Joey Porter entered the lineup, when it was Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson, the wide receiver one was averaging 25.2 points per game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just insane numbers for the wide receiver one. Before Joey Porter Jr. entered the lineup, the wide receiver one was averaging 7.7 receptions, 120 yards, and we had 3 different wide receivers catch 2 touchdowns in a game against the Steelers. But that's not the defense anymore. Christian Watson hopefully escapes Joey Porter Jr. Even if he's playing, he has the speed that can burn Joey Porter Jr. So I'm hopeful, but a little bit worried about Christian Watson this week. Not so worried about Trevor Lawrence. He is off the injury report. He is fully healthy. And the Jaguars get more good news too. Zay Jones limited in practice today. He hasn't practiced in weeks, if not months. Zay Jones injured his knee early in the season, hasn't been practicing, and he is back. Limited capacity. Don't know if we'll see him yet this weekend, but Zay Jones is back. Kyler Murray is back. He's practicing in full. We saw a video of him throwing to Hollywood Brown earlier today. You heard my thoughts yesterday on Kyler Murray, on Michael Wilson, on Hollywood Brown. There are going to be some spike weeks for these wide receivers for Kyler Murray. And James Conner, officially back at practice as well. 21-day practice window has opened for him. Looks like he's going to return on Sunday, and looks like James Conner is going to dominate once again. Amari DiMercado does not practice today, so James Conner, the best running back in the backfield, while he was away, Amari DiMercado, he is not practicing. Keontae Ingram's not going to be taking snaps away from James Conner. Tony Jones isn't going to be doing that. Darrell Williams not going to be doing that. So James Conner back to being a bell cow. Love James Conner and the rest of the Cardinals the rest of the season. Also good news for the Detroit Lions. David Montgomery is back to practice. He is practicing in full. He had the rib injury. We've talked about this. Now he is back. He is rip-roaring, ready to go. Along with the rest of his offensive line, Frank Ragnow, the center, missed last week, or missed before the bye. He is back. Jonah Jackson, the left guard, dealing with a high ankle sprain, missed a couple games. He is back. The only question remaining by the Detroit Lions is who's going to be the right guard, because Hal Vaitai, the starting right guard to start the season, he is back to being healthy. And Graham Glasgow, who replaced him, was actually better. But Glasgow was also the backup center when Ragnow went down, so we'll see how it shakes out. Either way, the Lions' offensive line is healthy. The Lions are looking beautiful. I cannot wait to see what we get from the Detroit Lions as they continue their dominance towards the first seed in the NFC. Yes, you heard it here first. The Eagles have a very tough stretch over the next couple weeks. They play the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Bills over the next 3 weeks. Eagles are in for it, whereas the Lions, they are going to be coasting the rest of the season. The Chargers game here and the Dallas Cowboys, those are the 2 toughest games for the Lions the rest of the season. So they might not lose another game the rest of the year. Detroit Lions may be a 2-loss season come the end of the year and the number 1 seed in the NFC. Other news around the NFL, speaking of the Detroit Lions, they were in on Martavis Bryant. Martavis Bryant, former wide receiver for the Raiders, former wide receiver for the Steelers, suspended, hasn't played since 2018. He's reinstated, and he joins the Dallas Cowboys practice squad. That was his first visit. If he didn't sign with the Cowboys, then the Titans were going to sign Martavis Bryant, or at least have him in for a workout. The Lions were also on the phone trying to get him instead. Martavis Bryant joins the Cowboys practice squad. Sticking in the NFC, we also mentioned earlier that Tommy DeVito going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Giants. Matt Barkley is going to be the backup. He signed to the active roster, and Jacob Eason is on the practice squad. This officially makes it 10 quarterbacks that are rookies are going to start this season once Tommy DeVito starts on Sunday. And that is an all-time record. Aside from the replacement player season, we're not going to count that because everyone was a rookie in the replacement player season, but that was a long time ago. Tommy DeVito makes it 10 rookie quarterbacks, and we'll see if we get any more. Maybe we do. Maybe Sean Clifford makes a start for the Packers. I don't know. we will see how things go along. Unfortunate news for the New York Giants is that this is the game of the week against the Dallas Cowboys at 4:00. Makes absolutely no sense why this is America's game of the week. Even with Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, the Giants haven't been good this season. But of course, it's the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are always America's game of the week. The Steelers have some updates from George Pickens. He is unhappy. He unfollowed Kenny Pickett on Instagram. He unfollowed the Steelers on Instagram. He even unfollowed head coach Mike Tomlin on Instagram, posted "free me," deletes all his pictures in a Steelers uniform, and then changes his profile picture to a picture of himself from high school. George Pickens having a meltdown, which Mike Tomlin calls a pebble in my shoe. He is not worried about it. Mike Tomlin never worried about anything, just continues to keep this locker room together. At some point, George Pickens, the squeaky wheel, is going to get the grease. George Pickens is going to have a monster game. We'll see when it happens, but it's going to happen soon. Other news across the NFL, including the NFL draft, underclassmen are now going to be eligible for the Senior Bowl. You can be a junior declaring for the NFL draft, and you can still go to the Senior Bowl. Same with the East-West Shrine Bowl, and same with the HBCU Legacy Bowl. This is great news. Last year, we saw 69 junior players enter the NFL draft. None of them were eligible for all-star games. Now they are, so this is going to be a big benefit for NFL teams, for players, and improving their stock. And one of the teams that could be coaching the Senior Bowl or another bowl next year is the Raiders. They fired Josh McDaniels. Apparently, Josh McDaniels found out he was fired while his kids were out trick-or-treating. He gets the news, calls his family, tells them to come back so he can deliver the news, which, why do you have to call them back and ruin their Halloween? I get his Halloween was ruined, but why do you have to ruin his kids' Halloween? They get no candy because you got fired? I don't think that's fair. I think you should have allowed your kids to get more candy, and then when you're sad at night that you got fired, you've got extra candy. But no, Josh McDaniels makes his kids come home to tell them that he's been fired. And we hear that there wasn't always agreement with the Raiders. Dave Ziegler, the GM, seems to be pushed around by Josh McDaniels. Jimmy Garoppolo was a big fat no from Dave Ziegler. He had no interest, knew it was going to blow up. Josh McDaniels disagrees. Apparently, there were many disagreements on the Raiders and their personnel and their moves. Just interesting to note. Hopefully, this new Raiders organization, whoever they hire, whether it is Antonio Pierce, their current head coach, whoever it is, hopefully it works out. Hopefully, it is a more cohesive operation than the New England Patriots currently run. The Patriots are making J.C. Jackson, their corner that they just traded back from the Chargers. He was a Pro Bowler for the Patriots, goes to L.A., one of the worst contracts that we've seen in recent memory in free agents. J.C. Jackson back with the Patriots, not going with the team to Germany. They're going to Germany to play the Colts. Bill Belichick could be fired if they lose to the Colts, as we've talked about, and he's not going to be with them. Patriots apparently hoping that this is going to be a mental reset because then they've got the bye after this Germany game, and J.C. Jackson is apparently too questionable, his reliability, to trust him to come to Germany. Not good for the New England Patriots. Not good at all. Final piece of information that I was able to pick up earlier today. There is a conspiracy out there that the Super Bowl logo actually predicts who is going to be in the game. We saw 2 years ago. It was an orangey red / yellow that we saw in the Super Bowl logo. If you look inside the letters, they've got different colors. 2 years ago, it was orangey red and yellow. Well, that clearly signifies the Bengals and the Rams, the only teams with an orangey red and yellow in their logo, right? Yeah, so those are the only two teams. And then last year, the Super Bowl logo was a tealy blue kind of color and a reddy pink kind of color. Well, of course, that's got to be the Philadelphia Eagles, even though I guess the teal kind of matches, the blue doesn't. And the reddy pink, some of it match with the Chiefs. I think this is a reach. I really think this is a reach. Could be multiple teams, but if that is true, if there is really a conspiracy that the NFL is telling us who's going to be in the Super Bowl based on the logo of the Super Bowl heading into the game, well, it looks like we've got two options. We're either going to get the purple team versus the red team, which either means it is the Baltimore Ravens up against the 49ers in the NFC, or we're getting the Minnesota Vikings, the purple team in the NFC, up against the Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC Red Team. Which Super Bowl would you rather have? Would you rather have the Ravens against the 49ers, or would you rather have the Vikings against the Chiefs? Let us know.